Hi, welcome to Introduction to Family Therapy. We're beginning with the first 12 pages of the introductory chapter, and then we'll move on to chapter 1. As you begin reading the introduction, you should have read Holly's story. And the story of Holly's therapy gives us a good picture of how meeting with a patient's family can suddenly make a patient's symptoms more understandable. When you think about it, go back and read her story. She was originally described as depressed. And what did we learn about the context of her depression? And then think about how once we expanded the focus of Holly as a member of a family system, that helped us as we treated the depression. Holly's depression began to make sense when the therapist met with her parents and discovered that Holly was afraid that if she grew up and left home, that her mother would be left behind in a bad marriage. And even a therapist that wasn't trained in family dynamics would gain enormous insight by inviting, especially Holly's family, but really any patient's family, for a consultation. So when we look at the history of psychotherapy, two of the most influential approaches to psychotherapy were Freud's psychoanalysis and then Carl Rogers' client-centered therapy. And both of these therapists made the therapeutic relationship kind of a sanctuary for the patient or the client. And they assumed that therapy should be conducted in private, away from distressing family relationships, and believed that a lot of the problems could arise or arose from interactions with others. Let's look at family versus individual therapy. Individual and family therapy each offer an approach to treatment and a way of understanding human behavior. Individual therapy provides a concentrated focus to help people face their fears and learn to become more fully themselves. Treatment is directed at the person and his or her individual makeup. In contrast, when we look at family therapists believe that the dominant forces in our lives are located externally in the family. Therefore, therapy based on this framework is directed at changing the organization of the family. Family therapy exerts influence on the entire family because each and every family member is changed and continues to exert synchronous changes on each other. So the family approach is often preferable for treating problems with children, complaints about marriage or other intimate relationships, family feuds, or symptoms that develop around the time of a life cycle transition. When we look into family therapy, we kind of shift our paradigm from thinking in lines to thinking in circles. Mental illness has traditionally been explained in linear terms, medical or psychoanalytical. For example, emotional distress was treated as a symptom of some internal dysfunction with historical causes. So these explanations take the form of A leads to B. And in individual therapy, therapists only hear one side of the story. When we think in circles, this allows individuals to look at half of the equation that they can control. And so this recursive or circular explanation takes into account interaction and mutual influences. We see that A leads to B and B leads to A. The illusion of linear thinking tempts therapists to see problems as rooted in individuals because we're only hearing one side of the story. But once we begin to understand that reciprocity is the governing principle of relationship, we can help people get past thinking in terms of good guy, bad guy, villain, victim. Learning to think in circles rather than lines empowers clients to look at the half of the equation that they can control, as I said earlier. And the power of family therapy comes from bringing parents and children together to transform their interactions instead of isolating individuals from the emotional origins of their conflict. In family therapy, we address problems at their source. So, the power of family therapy. The power of family therapy derives from including people with a significant impact on the identified patient and addressing these interactions. So, instead of relying on a client's account of relationship problems, those relationships are brought right into the therapy room or the therapy office. Moreover, when positive changes are initiated in family therapy, the fact that the whole family is included, the whole family was a part of it, they all heard the same terms, the same ideas, and the same solutions. And so they can begin to continue this change and working on those things at home and reinforcing progress. The downside of that is that when we include other family members, this may allow individuals to blame each other for problems and quarrel about who is responsible for what. So we've got to get past the blaming in order to help the family members recognize their own role in family problems and seeing that as part of the art of family therapy.